The space station Harmony's Edge floated in the darkness between stars. It was old and tired, built 40 years ago when the Galactic Union still believed in peace. Now, it served as a holding place for things the galaxy wanted to forget. Park stood at the observation window, watching cargo ships come and go. She was 22 years old, small and thin, with black hair cut short above her shoulders. Her cadet uniform was too big for her. Everything on this station seemed too big for her. She had arrived 3 weeks ago from the Seoul Orbital Academy. Her professors had called this internship an honor. Her mother had cried when she left Earth, had smiled and promised to make them proud. But now, standing alone in this cold metal hallway, she felt very far from home. "Cadet Park," a sharp voice made her turn around. Lieutenant Commander Ho Shin walked toward her with heavy steps. He was a tall man in his 50s, with gray hair and deep lines on his face. He looked like someone who had seen too many bad things and stopped being surprised by them. "Yes, sir," said standing straight. "You've been assigned to the medical bay, correct?" "Yes, sir, I start tomorrow." Shin nodded slowly. His eyes moved to something behind her down the corridor that led to the restricted sectors. "Good. Stay there, stay busy, and whatever you do, never go past the yellow line in Corridor 7. Followed his gaze. At the end of the hallway she could see a thick yellow stripe painted on the floor. Beyond it, the lights were dimmer. The air felt colder somehow. "What's down there, sir?" she asked. Shin's jaw tightened. "Nothing you need to know about, nothing anyone needs to know about." He looked at her with tired eyes. "The galaxy has no shortage of monsters, Cadet. Some of them are kept in cages. That's all you need to understand." He walked away without another word. That night could not sleep. Her small room had no windows, and the walls made strange sounds as the station shifted in space. She lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about monsters in cages. The next morning, she reported to the medical bay. Dr. Bora was in charge there. She was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and gentle hands. She showed how to check the medicine supplies and clean the equipment. "You're quiet," doctor said after a few hours. "Most cadets talk too much. You barely say anything." "I'm just trying to learn," said. Doctor smiled. "That's a good answer. Keep your eyes open and your mouth closed. You'll learn a lot on this station." She paused, looking at something on her computer screen. Her smile faded. "Too much, maybe." Doctor stepped closer. "Is something wrong?" Doctor quickly closed the screen. "Nothing, just some files I shouldn't have opened." She stood up and walked to the medicine cabinet. "Forget I said anything." But did not forget. She never forgot anything. Over the next few days, she noticed things. The security guards who walked toward Corridor 7 always came back looking pale and shaken. The food carts that went down that hallway came back empty, but the workers said nothing had eaten the food. Strange sounds echoed through the walls at night. Low sounds, sad sounds, like something crying in the dark. On her 4th day, found a small computer terminal that had been left unlocked. The worker who used it had gone to get coffee. Knew she should walk away. She knew she should follow the rules. She sat down and started searching. It took her 3 minutes to find the files on Sector 7 Delta. She read the name slowly, trying to remember where she had heard it before. Then she remembered. The Crimson War. The species that had fought against the Empire. The species that had lost everything. According to the files that had been destroyed 12 years ago, the entire species was gone, extinct, dead. Except for 3 cubs. Stared at the screen. 3 surviving cubs brought to Harmony's Edge as infants, classified as extremely dangerous biological specimens, kept in containment for study. Their ages, approximately 11 years old now. Their status, healthy but aggressive. Their feeding schedule, daily. But there was a note at the bottom of the file, added just yesterday. Specimens have refused food for 4 days. Staff unable to enter containment area due to aggressive behavior. Situation under review. His heart beat faster. She scrolled down and found images. The cubs were beautiful. They looked like wolves, but bigger, much bigger. Their fur was black like the space between stars, and their eyes glowed silver like distant moons. Even in the pictures, frozen and still, they looked powerful and proud. And there, at the bottom of the file, she found something that made her stop breathing. Names. The cubs had names. According to the records, the names had been given by their mother before she died. A rescue team had found the mother's body protecting her cubs in the ruins of their city. She had carved the names into the stone floor with her claws, using her last strength to give her children something no one could take away. Wind, world, sun, whispered the names softly, and something changed inside her. These were not monsters. These were children. Lost children, alone in the universe, locked in a cage, starving because they were afraid. That night she walked to Corridor 7. She did not cross the yellow line. She was not that brave, not yet. But she stood as close as she could, and she started to hum. It was an old song, a Korean lullaby her grandmother used to sing, about the moon and the stars and a child who was never alone because the sky was always watching. She sang softly, her voice barely louder than a whisper. At first, nothing happened. The corridor was silent. The darkness beyond the yellow line was still and cold. Then she heard it. A sound, not a growl, not a snarl, something softer, something that sounded almost like a question. She sang a little louder. The sound came again, closer now. And then, at the very edge of the light, she saw movement. A shape in the shadows, silver eyes catching the dim glow of the emergency lights. The smallest cub, the file had said, was the smallest. The cub pressed against the containment barrier, a wall of shimmering blue energy that separated the cell from the corridor. The cub did not growl, did not snarl, just stood there listening as sang about the moon and the stars. When she finished the song, looked into those silver eyes. "Hello," she whispered. "My name is, I'm going to help you, I promise." The cub tilted its head, and for just a moment thought she saw something in those eyes that was not anger or fear. It was hope. Every night for 1 week, returned to the yellow line. Every night she sang the same lullaby, and every night the cubs came closer. On the third night she saw for the first time the largest cub, almost as tall as her, even on all fours. His fur was darker than his siblings, and there was a scar across his left eye. He stood behind and watching with careful eyes. He did not come close. He did not trust her yet. On the fifth night made a sound that was almost like singing. A low, soft sound that followed the melody of lullaby. Smiled and kept singing, and his voice grew stronger. On the seventh night, decided she had to do more. The cubs still had not eaten. 9 days now. Doctor had told her that could survive without food for up to 2 weeks, but after that, their bodies would start to shut down. The cubs were running out of time. "You're going to get yourself killed," Wu Han said. Wu was best friend on the station. They had trained together at the Seoul Orbital Academy. Wu was tall and nervous, with quick eyes that always seemed to be looking for danger. He was smart enough to know that was planning something stupid. "They won't hurt me," said. "They know my voice now. They're apex predators. Their species hunted other species for food. You're a small human with no weapons. You're exactly what they eat. They're children. They're children who weigh 300 kilograms each and have claws that can cut through metal." Looked at her friend. Wu's hands were shaking. He was scared. She understood his fear. She felt it too, but she also felt something stronger. "If I don't do something, they're going to die," she said quietly. "Or worse." "What's worse than dying?" As if to answer his question, the station's announcement system crackled to life. A cold, clicking voice filled the corridor. "Attention all personnel. Director Eth of the Galactic Union Biological Hazard Division has arrived for inspection. All sector access will be restricted until further notice. Wu's face went pale. Biological Hazard Division. That's the department that handles dangerous species. They don't come to stations like this unless they're here to destroy something. Finished. She walked faster towards Sector 7 Delta. Wu followed, still protesting, still afraid, but unable to let his friend go alone. Director Eth was exactly what expected. He was tall and thin, with a body covered in dark green shell. His eyes were like black glass, showing nothing. When he spoke, his mandibles clicked together in a way that made skin crawl. "The specimens have become unmanageable," Eth said to Lieutenant Commander Shin. They were standing in the observation room above Sector 7 Delta, looking down at the containment cell where the cubs paced back and forth. "They have refused food. They have attacked every worker who approached. They are a danger to this station." "They're scared," said before she could stop herself. Every head in the room turned toward her. Director Eth's black eyes fixed on her like a predator spotting prey. "Who is this?" he clicked. "Cadet Park," Shin said quickly. "She's an intern. She doesn't speak for this station." "Clearly." Eth turned back to the window. "The specimens will be terminated in 72 hours. I have already filed the paperwork. The Galactic Union does not have resources to waste on creatures that cannot be controlled." "They can be controlled," said. Her voice was shaking, but she did not stop. "They just need someone to show them they're safe." Eth made a sound that might have been laughter. A human child thinks she understands alien predators better than trained specialists. How amusing. "Lieutenant Commander, please remove this cadet before I add insubordination to my report." Shin grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the door. His grip was tight, but his eyes were not angry. They were sad. "Don't throw your career away for animals that can't be saved," he whispered. "Everyone can be saved," whispered back, "if someone is brave enough to try." That night the power flickered. It happened sometimes on old stations like Harmony's Edge. The systems were tired. The generators needed rest. For exactly 47 seconds, the lights went dim and the containment barriers weakened. 47 seconds was enough. Ran through Corridor 7, past the yellow line, through the outer door that should have been locked. The containment barrier was still active, but weaker now, glowing a faint blue instead of bright white. She stood before the cubs. All three of them were there watching her, at the back massive and still, to the left head tilted with curiosity, and in front closest to the barrier, silver eyes wide. "Took a deep breath," she said. The cubs froze. Even the careful ones stopped moving. They stared at her with something new in their eyes, something that had not been there before. "Recognition. Your mother gave you those names," said softly. "She loved you. She wanted you to be remembered. She wanted you to know who you are." She stepped closer to the barrier. "I know who you are. I see you." Whimpered. It was a small sound, like a puppy lost in the rain. Then the smallest cub pressed its massive head against the barrier, right where its hand was touching from the other side. Slowly, carefully, walked forward and did the same. And then, after what felt like forever, moved. The great black wolf walked toward her, each step heavy and slow. He stopped at the barrier and looked down at her. His face was close enough that she could see the old wounds, the marks of a hard life. Did not move. She did not run. She looked into his silver eyes and said, "I'm going to get you out of here, I promise." Closed his eyes and pressed his snout against the barrier, against her palm. A noise behind her made spin around. Doctor stood in the doorway, her face white with shock. "Cadet Park," she breathed, "what have you done?" "I did what no one else would," said. "I showed them they're not alone." For a long moment, Doctor said nothing. She looked at the cubs pressed gently against the barrier. She looked at, small and brave and foolish. Then she walked forward and pressed something into his hand. "A data chip, the containment codes." "I didn't see anything," Doctor said. "I was never here." She turned and walked away, leaving alone with the cubs and the beginning of a plan. 48 hours remained until the cubs would be destroyed. Had spent every free moment with them, bringing food they finally ate from her hands, singing songs that made their tails wag slowly. But time was running out, and she still had no real plan to save them. She was walking back from the medical bay when the alarm started. Red lights flooded the corridors. A loud horn blasted through the speakers. The station's voice, usually calm and mechanical, now sounded sharp with warning. Attention all personnel. Security breach in docking bay 4. Unknown hostile forces have boarded the station. All non-combat personnel must proceed to designated safe zones immediately. This is not a drill. Stopped in the middle of the corridor. Around her, people started running, their faces filled with fear. She grabbed the arm of a passing technician. "What's happening?" she demanded. "Raiders," the man gasped. "Raiders. They came out of nowhere. The outer defenses didn't even see them coming." The word sent ice through his veins. The Empire was brutal and cruel. They had they had killed millions, and now they were here on the station. But why? The answer came to her like a punch to the stomach. The cubs, they used to capture as war beasts, trained them to fight and kill. The cubs were the last of their kind, and they were young enough to be controlled. They had not come for the station. They had come for and ran. She ignored the safe zone directions. She ignored the shouting security officers. She ran through corridors filled with smoke and screaming, past doors that sparked with damage from weapons fire. The station shook beneath her feet as explosions rocked the outer hull. By the time she reached Corridor 7, her lungs were burning and her legs ached. But she did not stop. She could not stop. The yellow line meant nothing now. She crossed it and kept running. Captain Wu was already there with a squad of armed soldiers. Was a large man with a shaved head and cold eyes. He wore heavy combat armor and carried a plasma rifle that hummed with deadly energy. "Sector 7 Delta must be secured," he was saying to his troops. "The hostiles are heading this way. If they take the specimens, they'll have weapons that can tear through our defenses." "Sir," one of the soldiers said, pointing, "the specimens are already agitated." Through the observation window could see the cubs. They were not calm anymore. They were packing, snarling, their eyes burning with rage. They could sense the danger. They could smell the enemy. "We can't let them take them," Captain said. "And we can't control them. That leaves one option." He raised his rifle and aimed at the containment cell. "No," screamed. She threw herself forward, pushing past soldiers twice her size, and stood directly between his weapon and the observation window. "Move aside," Cadet said. His voice was flat and cold. "I won't let you kill them. They're not pets, they're weapons, and if they get them, they'll use them to kill thousands of people. Millions, maybe. Is that what you want?" "They won't get them," said, "because the cubs won't go with them." Laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Look at them. They're monsters. They'll go with whoever opens that cage." "They're not monsters." His voice was steady now, even though her heart was pounding. "They're scared, they're alone, and they're waiting for someone to save them." An explosion shook the floor. Dust fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered and went out, replaced by dim red emergency lighting. "The hostiles have breached the secondary corridors," a voice crackled over his radio. "They're coming your way, Captain. 3 minutes, maybe less." Looked at. Then he looked at the cubs behind the barrier. Then he looked at his soldiers, all of them nervous, all of them waiting for orders. "2 options," he said quietly. "We kill them now or they take them. Either way, those creatures are not walking out of here with you, Cadet. That's not how this ends." Reached into her pocket and pulled out the data chip Doctor had given her, the containment codes. Her hand was shaking, but her voice was not. "There's a 3rd option." Before anyone could stop her, she turned and ran through the door into Sector 7 Delta. Behind her, She heard shouting, footsteps, the sound of weapons charging, but she did not look back. The containment barrier glowed blue in front of her. On the other side, the cubs were going wild, was throwing himself against the energy field, snarling with fury, was howling, a sound that made the walls shake, was crouched low, teeth bared, ready to attack anything that came close. They did not look like the cubs she had sung to. They looked like the monsters everyone said they were. Captain appeared in the doorway behind her, his rifle aimed at her back. "Step away from the console, cadet. That's an order." Inserted the data chip. The console beeped. "Last warning," said. "I will shoot you if I have to." Turned to face him. Tears were running down her cheeks, but her eyes were not afraid. "Then shoot me," she said. "Because I'm the only one who can stop them from being monsters. I'm the only one they trust. And if you kill me, you'll have to kill them too. Is that what you want to explain to the Galactic Union? That you killed the last 3 in the universe because you were too scared to try another way?" His finger tightened on the trigger. At the end of the corridor, a door exploded inward. Warriors poured through, their bodies covered in red armor, their weapons already firing. Spun to face them, defensive positions. The battle began, and pressed the button to lower the containment barrier. The blue barrier flickered and died. For one terrible moment, everything was silent. The soldiers stopped shooting, they stopped advancing. Even the smoke seemed to hang frozen in the air. And then the cubs moved. Was first. He exploded out of the containment cell like a black storm, 300 kilograms of muscle and rage. His roar shook the walls. His claws scraped deep grooves into the metal floor. His eyes burned silver with fury. And followed, flanking their brother, their own growls joining his in a terrible chorus. The warriors raised their weapons. Captain shouted orders, and stood in the middle of it all, completely still, completely calm. She did not run. She did not hide. She turned to face the cubs, putting her back to all the soldiers and all the enemies, trusting that the creatures everyone called monsters would not hurt her. Charged toward her. His jaws were open. His teeth were longer than her fingers. He could have killed her with one bite, one swipe of his claws, one moment of the violence he had been born to create. But raised her hand and spoke one word. The great beast stopped. His paws scraped against the floor as he tried to slow down. He stood before her, so close she could feel the heat of his breath, so close she could see the old pain in his face. She said again, softer now, "I'm here, it's okay, I'm here." The fury in his eyes flickered. Something else took its place. Something had seen before in the quiet moments at the barrier. Trust. And reached her seconds later, circling around her, pressing their bodies against her sides. They were shaking, not with rage but with fear. They had been alone for so long. They had been caged and threatened and forgotten. And now they were free, surrounded by enemies, with only one friend in the entire universe. Put her arms around them as best she could. They were so big, so powerful, but in that moment they felt like frightened children. "I've got you," she whispered. "I've got all of you, you're not alone anymore." "Impossible," someone breathed. Looked up. Captain was staring at her with his mouth open. His rifle hung loose in his hands. Behind him, his soldiers wore the same expression of shock. They were not so quiet. Their leader, a massive warrior with blood-red armor and 4 arms, stepped forward and laughed. "The little human thinks she can control them," he said in a harsh, grinding voice. "How sweet, how foolish. Those beasts belong to the Empire. They were made to serve us, to fight for us, to kill for us." He raised a device in one of his hands, a metal rod covered in blinking lights. "This is a neural collar controller. One press and those creatures will obey any command I give." He pressed the button. Nothing happened. The leader pressed it again, and again. His laughter faded into confusion, then anger. "Why isn't it working?" he demanded. Looked at the cubs pressed against her. Then she looked at and for the first time in her life, she felt something she had never felt before. Power. Because they don't belong to you anymore, she said. They never did. You put collars on their parents. You trained them with pain and fear and cruelty, but you forgot something important. And what is that, little human? Stood up straight, the cubs rising with her. You forgot to give them names. The leader roared and raised his weapon. His warriors charged forward, ready to take the cubs by force. But the cubs moved first. Met the first wave of with a roar that shook the entire sector. He was massive and fast and terrifying, but he was also smart. He did not attack wildly. He positioned himself between and the enemy, using his body as a shield. Was smaller but quicker. He darted between the warriors, biting at their legs, knocking them off balance, then retreating before they could strike back. Stayed closest too, growling at anyone who came near, ready to fight but also ready to protect. And did not stand still. She watched the battle with clear eyes, and when she saw an opening, she called out. Left. The great cub turned and caught a trying to flank them. Back. The swift cub retreated just as a plasma blast scorched the floor where he had been standing. And now, the smallest cub leaped onto a warrior who had gotten too close, bringing him down with her weight and fury. Captain finally shook off his shock. Cover fire, he shouted. Support them. His soldiers opened fire on working with the cubs instead of against them. The corridor became chaos, full of smoke and light and noise. The leader pushed through the battle toward. He was bigger and stronger than his warriors. He had fought in 100 battles. He had killed thousands. But he had never faced a human who was not afraid. You think you've won, he snarled, reaching for her. You think those beasts care about you. The moment you're gone, they'll. Appeared between them. The cub slammed into the leader with the force of a crashing ship. The warrior flew backward, hit the wall, and crumpled to the floor. But before he fell, he managed to fire one shot. The plasma bolt hit in the side. The cub stumbled, then fell, a terrible wound burning in his dark fur. Screamed. She ran to him, dropping to her knees beside his massive body. Blood was spreading across the floor. His breathing was shallow and fast. No, she whispered, pressing her hands against the wound. Stay with me, please, please. The great cub opened his silver eyes and looked at her. He whimpered, a small sound from such a large creature. Then he pressed his head against her chest, like a child seeking comfort from a mother he had never had. Behind them the battle ended. The retreated, dragging their fallen leader with them. Captain's soldiers held the corridor. They had won. But did not care about winning. She only cared about the cub dying in her arms. Someone help me, she cried. Please, someone help him. Doctor appeared beside her, medical kit in hand. Move your hands, she said firmly. Let me work. Moved. She held his head in her lap and sang softly, the same lullaby she had sung that first night. And pressed close, their bodies warm against hers, their eyes never leaving their brother. Stay with me, whispered. Please, I just found you. I can't lose you now. His eyes closed, and his breathing grew weaker. And sang louder, refusing to let him go. 3 days had passed since the battle. The station was quiet now. They had fled into deep space, their forces broken, their leader humiliated. Repair crews worked on the damaged sections. Life slowly returned to normal. But nothing was normal for her. She sat beside his bed in the medical bay, holding his massive paw in her small hands. Doctor had saved him. 3 surgeries, 2 blood transfusions from his siblings, and countless hours of careful treatment. The wound was closed now. The danger had passed, but had not woken up. You need to sleep, Wu said softly. He stood in the doorway holding a cup of tea. You haven't slept in days. I can't leave him. What if he wakes up and I'm not here? What if he's scared? She stroked the dark fur of his paw. He's been alone his whole life, Wu. locked in a cage, surrounded by people who thought he was a monster. I won't let him be alone again." Wu sighed. He walked over and set the tea beside her. "You're the bravest person I know, and also the most stubborn." "That's what my mother always said." And were curled up on the floor beside the bed. They had refused to leave too. The medical staff had been terrified at first, but the cubs had been gentle and calm, never threatening anyone, never causing trouble. They just wanted to be near their brother. Near. The door opened again and Lieutenant Commander Shin walked in. He looked tired, but there was something different in his eyes, something that had not been there before. "Cadet Park," he said, "there's someone here to see you." Director Eth entered behind him. Stood up slowly. Her hands were shaking, but she forced herself to stand straight. The cubs stirred, lifting their heads, watching the official with suspicious eyes. Eth stopped a few meters away. He looked at the cubs. His black eyes showed nothing. "I have reviewed the security footage from the incident," he said. His voice was cold and clicking like always. "I have spoken with Captain and Doctor. I have sent my report to the Galactic Union Council." Waited, she did not speak. "The termination order has been cancelled," Eth said. For a moment, could not breathe. "The Council has determined that the specimens are not uncontrollable," Eth continued. "They are simply untrained. With proper handling, they may be valuable assets to the Galactic Union." He paused. "Captain has recommended that they be reclassified as bonded companions rather than biological specimens. The Council has agreed." His legs felt weak. She reached out and grabbed the edge of his bed to steady herself. "There is one more matter," Eth said. "The Council has created a new position, first human ambassador to bonded species. They would like you to fill this position, Cadet Park." Me whispered. "You have demonstrated an ability to communicate with and control that no other being in the galaxy has shown. The Council believes you are the logical choice." His mandibles clicked. "I must admit, I did not expect this outcome. I did not believe the creatures could be anything but dangerous. It appears I was wrong." He turned and walked toward the door, then he stopped. "One more thing," he said without looking back. "The Council asked me to inquire about your conditions for accepting the position." Looked at, still sleeping. She looked at and watching her with their silver eyes. She thought about everything that had happened, everything that had almost gone wrong, everything she had risked. "One condition," she said, "they stay with me, forever, no cages, no experiments. No one treats them like specimens ever again." Eth was silent for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Agreed," he said and left. The moment the door closed, Wu grabbed in a hug so tight she could barely breathe. "You did it," he laughed. "You actually did it." Lieutenant Commander Shin smiled, a real smile that made his tired face look younger. "I underestimated you, Cadet. We all did." "She's not a cadet anymore," Doctor said, walking over to check on. "She's an ambassador." Smiled, but she was not looking at any of them. She was looking at, and as she watched, his eyes slowly opened. "Hey," she whispered, kneeling beside him. "Welcome back." Made a soft sound. His tail moved weakly. He pressed his head against her hand, just like he had done in the containment cell, just like he had done when she spoke his name for the first time. And jumped up and rushed to their brother, licking his face, pressing against him, making small happy sounds that filled the room. And laughed, tears running down her cheeks, surrounded by the three creatures everyone had called monsters. Her pack. The footage from the battle spread across the galaxy in days. People watched it 1,000 times, trying to understand. How had she done it? How had one small human tamed the untamable? There were scientific explanations, studies about bonding patterns, theories about sound frequencies and emotional connections. But the humans who watched understood something deeper. They knew that you do not tame a wild thing with cages and sedatives and fear. You do not control a creature by treating it like a monster. You reach them a different way. You give them something they have never had before. You give them a name. You give them a family. And you never, ever give up on them. In the medical bay, sang her lullaby one more time. Eyes drifted closed, peaceful now, safe now, and pressed close to their brother, their own eyes closing. And stayed with them through the night, one small human surrounded by 3 great wolves, watching over them like the moon watches over the stars. This was her family now, and she would protect them forever.